One painful truth changes everything. The moment a deeply empathetic person experiences real heartbreak, the world often expects them to become weaker, quieter, and permanently damaged. From the outside, it can look as though they have lost the very part of themselves that made them special. Their warmth seems to fade. Their endless patience disappears. Their willingness to forgive no longer comes so easily. Many people mistake this change for bitterness, but the reality is far more powerful. In many cases, heartbreak does not erase a compassionate person. It reveals a version of them that even they never knew existed. The deepest pain can become the beginning of the greatest emotional transformation. That transformation is rarely loud. It does not happen overnight. It grows quietly, hidden beneath disappointment, sleepless nights, unanswered questions, and the difficult process of letting go. By the time others notice the difference, the person who once gave away every piece of their heart has already become someone much stronger than before. There is a reason why certain people never return to the version of themselves that existed before a devastating breakup or betrayal. It is not because they stop believing in love. It is not because they lose the ability to care. It is because pain forces them to see truths they could not see while everything felt comfortable. The habits that once seemed like kindness suddenly reveal themselves as self-neglect. The sacrifices that once felt noble begin to look unbalanced. The endless desire to rescue, fix, and understand everyone else slowly gives way to a new question that changes everything. Who has been protecting the person who was always protecting everyone else? That single realization marks the beginning of a completely different life. Modern psychology tells us that difficult emotional experiences often become turning points for personal growth. Researchers even use the term post-traumatic growth to describe the positive psychological changes that some people experience after major life struggles. While heartbreak is painful, it can also encourage stronger boundaries, greater self-awareness, healthier relationships, and a clearer understanding of personal values. These changes do not happen because suffering is magical. They happen because pain forces people to examine themselves in ways comfort rarely does. For highly empathetic people, this process can feel especially intense because they often invest deeply in the emotions and well-being of those they love. In this video, you will discover why heartbreak affects deeply empathetic people so differently, why the pain often lasts longer than others expect, and how that same pain can become the foundation of extraordinary emotional strength. We will explore the habits that quietly disappear after a painful relationship, the hidden lessons that many people overlook, and the surprising ways emotional sensitivity can evolve into confidence instead of fear. You will also learn why healthier boundaries are not signs of becoming cold, why walking away sometimes requires more courage than holding on, and why the strongest version of a compassionate person is usually the one who has already survived disappointment. Along the way, we will uncover several lesser-known psychological insights that explain why some people come out of heartbreak with a deeper understanding of themselves instead of remaining trapped in resentment. Many people spend years searching for confidence in books, courses, or the opinions of others. Yet for some, confidence begins with one painful goodbye. The loss that once felt unbearable becomes the lesson that teaches them exactly what they will never accept again. Their standards rise. Their intuition becomes sharper. They stop confusing endless sacrifice with genuine love. They learn that compassion without boundaries often leads to exhaustion, while compassion guided by wisdom creates healthier and more meaningful relationships. These are quiet changes that outsiders rarely notice at first, but they influence every future decision. Stay with us until the very end, because the final lesson is often the one that changes how people see heartbreak forever. It reveals why many emotionally sensitive people eventually become calmer, wiser, and far more difficult to manipulate than they were before. It also explains why the greatest strength of a caring heart is not the ability to give endlessly, but the ability to know when giving is truly deserved. That perspective has transformed countless lives, and it may change the way you view your own experiences as well. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions about psychology, emotional growth, relationship, and the hidden patterns that shape our lives, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Now, let's uncover the hidden power that can emerge after heartbreak, and why, for many deeply empathetic people, The end of one chapter becomes the beginning of their strongest one. Before heartbreak, many highly empathetic people approach love with an open heart and very few conditions. When they care about someone, they rarely do it halfway. Their natural instinct is to give, support, encourage, and understand. They notice small changes in another person's mood. They remember little details that others forget. They sense emotional pain before it is spoken out loud. Because of this deep emotional awareness, they often become the person everyone turns to during difficult times. In relationships, this quality can be beautiful. They celebrate their partner's victories as if they were their own. They stay through hard seasons. They listen without judgment. They forgive more than most people would. They believe every difficult conversation can lead to healing if both people are willing to try. This hope becomes one of their greatest strengths, but it can also become one of their greatest weaknesses. Their heart naturally focuses on the good in people, even when reality quietly begins to tell a different story. Instead of asking whether someone deserves their trust, they often begin by giving it freely. They believe that kindness creates kindness. They believe patience can soften anger. They believe loyalty can inspire loyalty. Because they value emotional connection so deeply, they often expect others to care with the same honesty they bring into every relationship. This expectation is understandable, but life does not always work that way. Some people appreciate genuine love, while others simply become comfortable receiving it without giving the same effort in return. At first, the imbalance is difficult to notice because an empathetic person naturally fills every emotional gap. If communication becomes weak, they try harder. If affection becomes distant, they become even more affectionate. If problems appear, they immediately begin searching for solutions, instead of questioning whether the relationship itself has become unhealthy. One of the most common patterns is putting another person's needs before their own. They cancel personal plans because someone else needs comfort. They hide their own sadness because they do not want to burden anyone. They stay awake worrying about another person's happiness while quietly ignoring their own exhaustion. Little by little, they begin measuring their value by how useful they can be to someone else. The relationship slowly becomes centered around giving instead of sharing. Without realizing it, they start believing that love must always require sacrifice. Every compromise feels necessary. Every disappointment becomes another opportunity to prove commitment. They convince themselves that enduring emotional pain is simply part of loving deeply. This mindset also makes it easier to overlook warning signs that other people might notice immediately. A broken promise becomes an understandable mistake. Repeated disrespect is explained away as stress. Emotional distance is blamed on work, childhood wounds, or difficult circumstances. Instead of asking why someone continues to hurt them, they search for reasons that make the behavior easier to forgive. Their compassion is genuine, but compassion without healthy limits often becomes permission for unhealthy patterns to continue. They see potential instead of reality. They become attached to who someone could become, rather than accepting who that person consistently chooses to be. Many deeply empathetic people also carry the quiet belief that enough love can heal almost anyone. If they remain patient, understanding, and supportive, they believe the relationship will eventually become everything they hoped it would be. This belief is comforting because it gives them a sense of purpose. They feel responsible for protecting the relationship from falling apart. They become emotional caretakers. They work harder every time another problem appears. Yet relationships cannot survive on the effort of one person alone. Love can encourage growth, but it cannot force another person to change. It cannot replace accountability, honesty, or mutual respect. When only one person continues carrying the emotional weight, even the strongest heart eventually grows tired. The draining process is rarely dramatic. It happens quietly over weeks, months, or even years. The empathetic partner slowly stops asking for what they need because they fear creating conflict. They become experts at understanding everyone else's emotions while losing touch with their own. They smile when they feel hurt. They stay silent when they need reassurance. They keep giving because giving has become part of their identity. Eventually, emotional exhaustion begins replacing joy. Conversations feel heavier. Small disappointments hurt more deeply. They wake up feeling responsible for fixing problems that were never theirs to solve. The relationship no longer feels like two people walking together. It feels like one person carrying both lives. Over time, sacrifice becomes confused with love itself. They begin believing that the more they give up, the more real their love becomes. Personal dreams are delayed. Boundaries disappear. Self-respect quietly steps aside to make room for endless understanding. They no longer ask whether their kindness is being appreciated because they have become focused entirely on preserving the relationship. Every compromise seems temporary, yet the temporary slowly becomes permanent. The emotional balance continues shifting until one person gives almost everything while the other simply receives. As this pattern grows stronger, the relationship begins changing in ways that are difficult to recognize from the inside. One partner becomes increasingly dependent on being cared for, while the other becomes increasingly afraid of losing what they have invested so much to build. Honest conversations become harder because the empathetic person fears that expressing disappointment might push the other person away. Instead of speaking openly, they become quieter. Instead of protecting themselves, they protect the relationship at any cost. What once felt like deep connection slowly turns into emotional survival. The saddest part is that many do not realize how much of themselves they have lost until the relationship finally ends. Then comes the heartbreak, and for a deeply empathetic person, the loss reaches far beyond the ending of a romance. They are not simply grieving another person. They are grieving the future they carefully imagined together. Every shared dream suddenly disappears. Every plan becomes a memory instead of a destination. Places that once felt comforting now remind them of what no longer exists. Familiar songs become painful. Ordinary routines suddenly feel empty because so much of their emotional world had become connected to another person. It is not only the relationship that breaks. Their sense of safety breaks with it. Many people recover by quickly searching for another distraction. But highly empathetic people often cannot move on so easily because they process emotions deeply. They replay conversations in their minds, searching for answers. They question decisions they made months earlier. They wonder whether they could have loved better, communicated differently, or sacrificed even more. Instead of blaming the other person first, they often blame themselves. They carry guilt that does not belong to them. They search for flaws inside themselves, because accepting betrayal can feel even more painful than accepting personal failure. This emotional habit keeps the wound open much longer than necessary. At first, the questions become endless. Why did this happen? Why was love not enough? Why did all the effort fail? Yet as time slowly passes, those questions begin changing. Instead of asking what they did wrong, they begin asking what they ignored about themselves. They remember the moments they accepted behavior that made them uncomfortable. They remember every boundary they abandoned to keep someone else happy. They remember every warning sign they explained away, because hope felt stronger than reality. These memories hurt, but they also become teachers. Pain begins revealing truths that comfort had hidden for a long time. This is where the real transformation quietly begins. The same emotional sensitivity that once made them overlook unhealthy patterns now becomes a powerful source of wisdom. They stop seeing boundaries as acts of selfishness and begin recognizing them as acts of self-respect. They understand that protecting their peace does not mean they care less. It simply means they finally care about themselves too. Emotional independence slowly replaces emotional dependence. Their happiness is no longer built entirely around another person's approval. They discover that being alone is far healthier than constantly feeling lonely inside the wrong relationship. As healing continues, their judgment becomes sharper. They no longer ignore repeated patterns simply because someone offers beautiful words. They begin paying attention to actions instead of promises. Consistency becomes more valuable than charm. Respect becomes more attractive than empty affection. They realize that genuine love creates peace more often than confusion. Their sensitivity has not disappeared. It has matured. Instead of making every excuse for someone else's behavior, they now recognize the difference between understanding another person's pain and accepting treatment that damages their own well-being. People who once underestimated them often become surprised by this new version. The person who used to explain every decision now feels comfortable saying no without guilt. The person who once begged to be understood now calmly walks away from conversations that go nowhere. They stop chasing approval because they finally understand that self-worth cannot be earned by constantly proving themselves. They no longer rush to rescue everyone because they recognize that lasting change must come from within each individual. They offer kindness freely, but they no longer sacrifice themselves to receive acceptance. Perhaps the biggest change is their calmness. Before heartbreak, emotional conflict could consume their thoughts for days. After healing, they learn that not every misunderstanding deserves endless energy. They stop reacting to every criticism. They stop defending themselves against every false accusation. Silence becomes a form of confidence rather than fear. Walking away becomes an act of wisdom instead of defeat. Their peace becomes too valuable to exchange for unnecessary drama. This quiet strength often confuses people who expected them to remain emotionally available no matter how poorly they were treated. For the first time in many years, the same compassion they once poured endlessly into others begins flowing toward themselves. They rest without feeling guilty. They protect their time without apologizing. They choose relationships that feel safe instead of relationships that constantly require fixing. They begin trusting their intuition again because experience has taught them that those uncomfortable feelings often appear for a reason. They no longer hand over complete access to their heart simply because someone asks for it. Trust becomes something that is built slowly through honesty, consistency, and respect. Their capacity to love never disappears. If anything, it becomes healthier than ever before. They still care deeply. They still support the people they love. They still believe in meaningful connection. The difference is that love is no longer measured by how much pain they are willing to endure. It is measured by mutual effort, emotional safety, and genuine respect. Heartbreak becomes the lesson that quietly protects every relationship that follows. And while others continue searching outside themselves for the missing piece, the deeply empathetic person begins discovering that the greatest strength they were searching for had been growing within them all along. This is the point where people notice something completely different about the empath, and this changes every relationship they have from that moment forward. This may be the greatest hidden power of all. Heartbreak may feel like the end when you are living through it, but for many deeply empathetic people, it becomes the beginning of a life they never thought was possible. The pain that once seemed unbearable slowly turns into clarity. The tears that once felt endless become quiet reminders of how far they have come. They do not stop loving. They do not lose their kindness. They do not become cold or uncaring. Instead, they become wiser. They learn that protecting their peace is not selfish. It is necessary. They discover that real love does not demand the loss of their identity, their self-respect, or their happiness. Their compassion remains one of their greatest strengths, but now it is guided by wisdom instead of sacrifice. Their heart stays open, but it is no longer open to everyone. It is reserved for people who value honesty, respect, and genuine care. If there is one lesson to remember from this journey, it is this. The deepest heartbreak can become the strongest foundation for the person you are meant to become. Sometimes, life has to break the version of you that settled for less, so it can reveal the version that finally knows its worth. Every painful experience teaches a lesson, and every lesson makes your future stronger than your past. The scars may remain, but they no longer represent weakness. They become proof that you survived, you grew, and you refuse to let pain define your future. An empath's greatest power isn't loving without limits. It's learning that the strongest heart is the one that knows exactly who deserves to enter. If this message spoke to you or reminded you of your own journey, let us know in the comments by sharing the biggest lesson heartbreak has taught you. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be healing in silence. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.